So welcome everybody to my drawing process and some random ramblings. Today I have a guest, the amazing, the greatest, the illustrious Olivie Blake is joining us. Hello, Olivie.
All of the above, that's how I prefer it to be. That's actually what I tell baristas to put on my coffee cup.
Obviously.
So, yeah.
You are the author of the currently very famous The Atlas 6.
Yes. I am the author. I hesitate to call it famous, but it is certainly making its rounds, which is very exciting and weird. It's really weird.
You know, there's no need to be shy. I've seen the TikToks. I've seen how people are very excited for it. So could you tell me, how was it when you first saw how people reacted to your stories?
It's like a fever dream. It feels like it can't possibly be real and that it's going to disappear any second. Like I'm just going to wake up and be like, that was a weird dream. It started when I was really pregnant and like super grumpy and just not wanting to deal with anything, and kind of started with this weird like miscommunication, and people were like, people are stealing your books and they're gatekeeping. And I was like, I don't understand. I'm so pregnant. I can't do this. And then, after my baby was born, it's kind of taken off, and like that's been weird in a completely different way. So yeah, it mostly feels very fake, and that's all I have to say about that.
Twitter Bookverse really reacted immensely and very lavishly, I would say.
Yeah, lavishly is a good word for it. It's very, it's crazy because I really did not think that this book was going to have that kind of appeal. You know, like what books do things like this? It's books that have, I guess my book does have a threesome in it. So never mind. Maybe it is one of those books.
Maybe this is why people got finally excited, because they were waiting so long for someone to finally write a proper scene.
Yeah, that's probably it. You're right.
And you are the person for it.
We'll go with that.
So for those who are not familiar with your writing, The Atlas 6 is a dark academia book, would you say so?
Yes, definitely.
So for those who are not familiar with the term, how would you describe it?
I think traditionally in terms of literary subgenres, we're starting with The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which was published in the early 90s. So this is a thing that's been around for a long time that kind of is focused on the idea of, it's in the setting of higher education, and it has to do with the like sort of intense academics. You know, Secret History has a lot of literature and art and stuff like that. So it's very classics. It's really rooted in the Greek and Roman classics. But I think since then it's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's become sort of like a vibe. It has sort of a defined set of aesthetics, which is kind of that like, you know, the dim lights in the library and the kind of 30s, 40s outfits, the sort of Ivy League, the American Ivy League aesthetic / the Oxbridge from England. So it has become sort of a narrow term, but it applies to things like the books If We Were Villains, Ace of Spades that just came out, A Deadly Education. And it really works well with a lot of, you know, fantasy genres as well. So it's been really interesting to see what has happened with that. But fundamentally, it's just something mysterious happens at a university.
So we know it's about academia, academic subjects, but what about the darkness? What does the dark stand for in academia?
I think academia is inherently a little bit dark, especially at this level, especially at the university and post-university level. It's just the focus on higher education is implying a lot of secrecy. And then there's also the implication of elitism and privilege, which I think is just starting to be explored a little bit more with authors of color who are coming into the genre. But it is inherently very sexy, because, you know, not everybody is invited. There's sort of always like an interloper who doesn't feel like they belong there, and they're usually the sort of star of the book, you know, is the person who's like not as clever as the people around them who are like so intelligent, and they're always having banter and they've got secrets and something has happened in the past, and like Yeah, it's very covert. I think it also is appealing because there's no like oversight. There's no like, usually there's like one adult and it's like the weird professor who is really intense and kind of sets them on this path. But it's really mostly about all these young adults in this, youngish adults, depending on the age. It's in this youngish adult setting where it's just them. They're kind of isolated. They have only their own rules. And that's the other thing, is it's kind of operating like outside of the law. You're operating within the code of the academic code versus worrying about whether you may have murdered someone at a bacchanal.
I wonder if the Dark Academia gets popular right now. Is it because people who grew up on Harry Potter books, who are very like dark-ish with those different, maybe roguish events going on and mysteries? Is it possible that because of now we are grown-ups, we now want to explore that aesthetic, this type of spaces and universes, but with a different cast of characters, with different type of stories that are currently created? I
mean, I think the Harry Potter aesthetic is very strong. The being in this castle and kind of away from everything, and it's very isolated. And like I said, it has its own rules and its own, I'm sure there's a better word than vibe, but vibe is the word we're going with. I mean, that certainly could be part of it, although I think that Harry Potter really leveraged a kind of pre-existing admiration of that experience. I don't think Harry Potter was the first to explore the idea of like, an quaint English boarding school, like Diana Wynne Jones did that first, and probably lots of other people that I can't think of right now. But I do think that there's something about the escapism of it. There is a little bit of Anglophilia in it, which, problematic or not, it's there.
And sexy libraries.
Sexy libraries.
And crazy professors.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and like eccentric professors, sort of secret things going on. With like, people have a past, or what this mysterious thing could have happened. And of course, like, in this isolated place, they cannot hide it away.
So you already mentioned that there might be some problematic subjects or maybe angles that a Dark Academia brings out.
Yeah.
I have written down my paragraph here and I'm just going to read it out loud. So ancient universities are a big part of the Dark Academia aesthetic. Considering the classist and racist politics that these institutions dabble in, how would you describe the role of featuring diverse characters in the Dark Academia books?
Well, I think that historically what was appealing about Dark Academia is that there's barriers to entry, which is, the racism and classism that you're talking about. There are the people who are the right fit for academia. Like in The Secret History, you have someone coming into this group of people who all properly fit the mold, but he is not. And that's how it kind of highlights how much he wants to be part of this group. So part of Dark Academia is like wanting to be part of the culture that's been established, because it's so hard, because you're supposed to be the smartest, you're supposed to be the most sophisticated, the most well-read, and there's so there's something inherently sexy about being among people who are like the best of their field and trying to be one of them. But then I think that inherently, like you mentioned, then when you start bringing in people of color, it becomes a question of, do I actually want to be part of this community once we've started uncovering all their secrets and all the like dirty little things that they've been doing for centuries, maybe, in terms of excluding other people. So then the exclusion becomes part of the darkness.
Definitely. In your books, and I think in all of your books actually, you usually feature very diverse cast of characters. And in the Atlas 6 we have people from Japan, we have from Persia or France. I don't know how Paris.
Right. Both. So she studies in France, but she's from...
We have a black gentleman from England, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Tristan. and Colum from South Africa.
Yes.
And Nico and Libby. Libby being from United States and Nico from
Cuba.
Yes.
Yeah, Cuba, but American educated. So I did want to play with, people coming from all around the world, but I was not necessarily trying to fight the stereotype of exclusion. They were all trained in, very westernized places. So even if they can't, Parisa comes from Tehran, but she studies in Paris. Callum studies in Athens, and Nico studies in New York. So we're still kind of getting. The Athens one is a little bit of an outlier. I just wanted to include some of the classic Greco-Roman. I felt there should be a a school that would be in the classic area geographically. So on the one hand, they do, they come from a lot of different places. They bring a lot of different ideas to the table. Raina in particular is always commenting on how Western things are. And she's like, this is a stupid idea. And she thinks everything is stupid.
So you mentioned that Dark Academia features Ivy League and Oxford University's aesthetic. And we all know they enroll mostly people from English-speaking countries, from wealthy backgrounds, and are mostly white. So while I personally see Dark Academia as a space for creating stories of those who are historically rejected by these institutions, I wonder if using the aesthetic of colonialist academic organizations such as Yale University and putting it on a pedestal is giving it even more power and influence than it already has.
I think that would have really been true. I definitely agree with you that there is a little bit of the Ivy League, Oxbridge worship. But I also think that we're kind of rounding a corner where once you start involving diverse characters, they're less likely to want to build up the institution. So they can, because they are not white and not wealthy and not, classically from whatever, they don't fit into the mold of what that student should be, they can see the flaws that other people can't. So one of the things with my characters being a little bit more diverse is they're very skeptical of the setting that they're in because they already know what it is to be taken advantage of. It's hard to talk about Dark Academia from this point because I think that we're at a turning point where you have a lot more, not just authors of color, but readers of color engaging with this sort of sub-genre of literature and looking at a story like The Secret History or If We Were Villains and being like, why don't they just not do these things? Or when you look at Harry Potter and you're like, well, why did he just do everything that Dumbledore said? I think initially when you have people who are traditionally fitting into the mold, they don't question that Hogwarts is the greatest wizarding school or whatever. They just are, or that Gryffindor is the best house. They're just on board with what the institution is telling them. Versus, I think what makes Dark Academia interesting and sexier now is the idea of maybe the institution itself is corrupt.
And maybe the building is going to kill you. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe the building's going to kill you. Maybe there's a snake in the pipes.
Everything can happen. Dark topics aside, even though it's still Dark Academia, let's make it light, even though it's not light academia.
Yeah.
Even though it's also a subgenre, I've heard, light academia.
I feel like light academia is a little too close to cottagecore.
Is Dark Academia basically a tall, dark, and handsome trope, but make it a library?
Yes. I think all the characters, they have secrets, they're hiding something, and it's super easy to hide it in books. Physically, in the Society, in the Atlas 6, it's dark all the time because the manuscripts themselves are very sensitive. So there can't be a lot of industrial lights, so it's just dark all the time. And I feel like that makes the library a sexier place. But it's for the manuscript. It's not for whatever the characters are doing in there.
A narrow halls of library. Nothing's going on there. So why are people hotter with books?
Oh, because intelligence is sexy. Because the banter is good. I don't even know if it would count as banter at that point because it's a little bit meaner. I think that's the thing with Dark Academia is you get mean nerds and they're kind of lording their intellect over you, the reader / the characters.
And there's definitely something about intelligence and speaking with the silver tongue.
Definitely being well-spoken, and also, art and literature is sexy. Just the study of these things and talking about beauty and about poetry. all of that is just going to contribute to a highly erotic environment.
So is dark academia inherently sexy?
Yes, I think that it is. I mean, I think that it really involves, well, first of all, it's the conflation of knowledge and power. And knowledge you can do whatever you want with, but power is always sexy. Secrets are always sexy. So the second, are we calling it second season, second series, second whatever of Clara and the Devil is venturing into the dark academia area. Clara is in a postgraduate situation and there's a few new characters. And I think that we already have the Devil who's very sexy and he fits in perfectly to this environment. So I'm going to have to say that because the Devil is so at home in this sort of dark academia setting, that yes, it is inherently sexy.
I've got to love how well you did this segue into Clara and the Devil. So I'm really happy to say that you wrote amazing second part, or rather second season of Clara and the Devil. Second season premieres on June solstice, summer solstice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we will be posting one chapter per week.
Woo! I'm excited. I can't wait.
Nick is even more handsome than usual.
Because he's got books now.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to give too much away, but he does have books. Well, he had books at the library, but he has more books now.
As we established, books make people definitely more attractive. And Clara is more sneaky, more suspicious.
That's another thing about dark academia is the morality. People are always talking about what's good and what's evil.
The ambiguity.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us today. Our guest, Olivie Blake, the amazing, the best in all the possible fields. The dark academia mother.
Mm-hmm.
Founding mother of dark academia. I dare to say it.
Okay, I'll just sure.
And she was fantastic. If you managed to listen till the end, leave a book emoji in the comments.
Ooh.
And be sexy with us.